Two legendary market experts are stepping forward to warn we're in the earliest stages of what they call the Great Unraveling, a specific event starting to take root in America that's behind the recent crash in stocks and the record inflation you're seeing. But they worry it's about to get even worse. And many of the things you take for granted are due for a big disruption in the months ahead. Your Social Security benefits will likely be slashed. Your taxes are probably going way up. And many of your investments are likely to continue falling. Meanwhile, even if you think you've saved enough money to retire, you're probably going to need way more money than you thought. Your personal success all comes down to how well you understand what's heading your way. This is why I strongly encourage you to read about their warning today, totally free. It's all spelled out in a free report we've put together about the Great Unraveling. Get the facts yourself. Go to unravelingreport.com to get your free copy of this report. You can learn how to get their full playbook to prepare for what's coming. Again, that's unravelingreport.com for a free copy of this new report. Hi, this is Daniela Cambone. Happy New Year. Welcome back to the Daniela Cambone Show with a very special guest today, one that the New York Post has said if Nostradamus was still alive today, he would have a hard time keeping up with Gerald Celente. Gerald, always good to see you, my friend. Happy 2023.
Happy New Year to you, and thank you so much for having me on.
Well, we are speaking today, Friday, January 6th, which many countries celebrate. It's a public holiday because it is the Epiphany. One of these countries, Gerald, as you know, is Italy. It's a day that traditionally children would receive gifts. But it also marks the end of the holiday season. There's the saying in Italian that says, L'Epifania tutte le feste porta via, meaning basically the Epiphany carries away with it all the festivities, and it's time to get down to business. And that's why I wanted to have you on today, because we got a lot of business to cover. But an Epiphany, as you know, is also a moment when you suddenly feel that you understand something. And I know, Gerald, of being your friend for many years, that you are a man of great reflection, of great thought. You write all the time, you ponder. And I'd like to get your thoughts as we start the new year here, as where your mind is at.
Well, thanks. Hey, I'm very concerned about the future. I've been at this since 1980, and I've never seen a decline that we're looking at now. One of the trends that we're forecasting, you go back to our Trends Journal magazine on February 22nd, 2022, 2 days before the Ukraine war started. And the magazine headline read, "From COVID war to Ukraine war to World War." World War III's begun. They say it's a proxy war between NATO and the United States. It's not a proxy war, they're at war. The United States has sent in over $100 billion of aid and weapons to Ukraine since this broke out. This is a country, the United States, where 63% of the people are living paycheck to paycheck. And they just sent over $100 billion over there. This is a country where they just passed a defense budget of about $860 billion, as the homeless situation in a city near you just keeps getting worse. Look at the facts of what's going on. Again, we only, write what they put out there, and you have this guy who, the Prime Minister of Sweden, and the President of France, Macron, met earlier this week, and they say, quote, "The two leaders reaffirm Europe's determination to support Ukraine in the 10th month of the Russian offensive." Quote, "The Ukrainians need our support more than ever," said Macron. Quote, The victory of Ukraine is existential for Europe and for the whole world, said the Swedish Prime Minister. Wait a minute. You mean what's going on between Russia and Ukraine is existential for the whole world? You mean the people down in Bolivia, Argentina, Ghana, Somalia? I mean, what are we talking about over here? They're ramping this thing up into World War III. It's begun. And there's going to be a false flag or a nuclear exchange. NATO chief says sending more weapons to Ukraine, you can't make this up, is the quickest path to peace. Quote, it may sound like a paradox, but military support for Ukraine is the fastest way to peace, said Jens Stoltenberg, the guy that runs the NATO. And well, what am I, 6 years old? Who are you talking to? More weapons of death are going to bring us to peace? So this is serious what's going on. And that's my greatest concern. Because there are a lot of positive trends out there that are going to escalate society. But if this war keeps ramping up, it's the beginning of the end.
And I do want to focus on those positive trends because we need some good news, but just, not to spend more time on this Ukraine-Russia, but, we're on day, 319 of the invasion. Russia highly criticized, obviously, Zelensky's visit to Washington, saying that it showed that neither the U.S. or Ukraine wants peace. Do you agree with that statement? And where do we go from here? How much longer does this play out?
Well, that's what I'm saying. They say the United States said, we quoted, and the guy, Ned Price, one after another, saying that that guy Sullivan, that this is not a time for peace. This is not a time to talk. Oh, by the way, you were mentioning about celebrating the Epiphany.
Yeah.
What is it? The birth of Christ? The Prince of Peace? Oh, no, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about the Prince of Peace. Hey, how did Christmas sales do? I mean, can't you see where this is going? Again, as I said, there's going to be a false flag or a nuclear exchange to make this official. They said that the World War II began when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. You go back to July 1941. Do you know what happened? Japan, you could Google this up, History Today. Japan had the nerve to go into French Indochina. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt took all the assets of Japan that they had in the United States because they went in there because they were going to go into China. So they took over French Indochina, and they cut off all the oil supplies 88% of the oil supplies going into Japan. And Japan needs 100% of the oil. And Japan's trade dropped by 3/4. This is before Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. They never talk about that. Oh, and by the way, they put sanctions on Japan for going into French Indochina. What were the French doing over there in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos? Do you see what I'm saying? Oh, and they talk about, the Japan was stealing the rubber and other tin and that they needed. That's all this is ever about. So what I'm saying to you is that on the economic front, we are in a very dangerous position here.
Yeah.
And if this war continues to go on like it is going to crash the economies. All things are connected, like the blood which unites us all, said Chief Seattle.
On that note, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, came out, and I feel this didn't get enough press, by the way. Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva warned that the global economy, as you say, Gerald, faces a tough year, tougher than the year we leave behind. Why, you may ask, is she saying this? She goes on to say, we expect 1/3 of the world economy to be in recession because the three big economies, US, Europe, and China, are all slowing down simultaneously. Now, she adds, While the U.S. may avoid a recession, she really sees the EU as being severely hit by the war in Ukraine, and that half of the EU will be in recession in 2023. China faces the same fate.
Japan hit its highest inflation rate in 7 decades. The sanctions that they put on Russia have, the quote from Biden, it was going to punish Putin. It didn't punish Putin, it punished the people. Again, then you look at the headlines going on and on from place after place. China, December manufacturing contracts at its sharpest pace in almost 3 years. Wall Street Journal, Chinese economic activity takes big hit. It's one after another. And again, they're making a very bad situation worse by ramping up the war. So let's go back to the reality. Let's go back to 2019, not ancient history. Happy New Year. At that time, Germany was a fraction of going into a recession. Let's go back to September of 2019. Hey, remember the repo markets where the Federal Reserve dumped in $10 trillion between September 2019 to January 2020 so they could keep pumping up the markets because they needed more cheap money? Now let's go to the COVID war. They locked down the world. And we're talking about why China's in so much trouble with their zero COVID policy. The businesses that they've destroyed in China and around the world are incalculable. Oh, you're talking about Italy? Now they're talking about Italy, and I think it was the IMF or one of them just came out, that they're facing the worst financial crisis of all of them concerning their debt level. Yeah. And look at what's happened to the businesses. So now let's put it all together. We're looking at what happened and why it happened. So when they began the COVID war, they locked down everything. Stay at home. You can't go to work, but hey, here's some cheap money for you. Here, go on. Shut up. Here's some money. You got a business here. We're going to give you money. Oh, we're going to print, we're going to go to zero and negative interest rates. Well, they stayed on negative interest rates, what, in Europe for how many years? Oh, only 8. In the United States, zero interest rate policy. The market should have crashed in 2020. No, we had a real estate boom. We had a high-tech boom. People were buying and fixing up. Here's more cheap money. Here's cheap money. But now, let's go back to the facts. We had the BS from Janet Yellen. Oh, by the way, taken over by the Federal Reserve because she was the head of the Fed and now our Treasury Secretary, along with the guy playing the Fed head, Powell, going on for almost 2 years. Celente, you're full of baloney, and so are you other people. There is no inflation. It's only temporary. No. It's only transitory. They lied about it. They knew it was real. Same thing with Lagarde. So they could keep pumping in that cheap money. Now, here's the big lie. Now they're saying inflation will get better because it was only caused by the supply chain disruptions, not our cheap money and our zero interest rate policy. You see where this is going? So here's the deal. If the Federal Reserve raises interest rates in February 1st, even 25 basis points, it's going to keep pushing the markets down. However, being that it's all about the bottom line, they may be less aggressive in raising interest rates, and that's why you're seeing gold prices going up.
Right. Okay. Few things there. I want to bring up the BRICS, okay? Because we're seeing the strength of the BRICS rise, right? Increase. Yep. Other countries want to be added on. We see Putin's New Year's Eve message embracing China, Brazil, and India. Hey, we're all friends now. Chummy friends. Talk to me about your thoughts on the BRICS and how that role may change here.
If China didn't have its zero interest rate policy, the zero COVID policy, we were forecasting that China was going to be the largest economy in the world within 7 years. This has really slowed it down. China and Russia have united. The BRICS have united. They are tired of the West running the world. And there are more of them than us. It's all in the numbers. When you're looking at China, and again, it's just baloney, that, their birth rate is going down. You got 1.4 billion people over there. You got 332 million in America. You got about 40 million in Europe. It's all about the numbers. So when you start putting all the BRICS in, and then you start bringing in the other countries, Indonesia and on and on and on. No, the future is going in that direction.
But the U.S. is
because here's the deal. The business of China is business, as with their brick road, their road initiative, built what they've done. The business of America is war. So as America and Europe, and again, I just read to you what Stoltenberg is saying, what all the Europeans are doing, putting more and more and more and more and more money into the military, as the other countries are putting more and more and more money into building their economies.
Right. Okay. So are they doing that because they see what's coming with the BRICS? I mean, obviously the U.S. is looking at this thinking, how do we maintain our superpower status here if the BRICS keep growing?
And that's what I'm saying. When all else fails, they take you to war. I talked about what Roosevelt did in 1941. What happened before that? There was a thing called the Great Depression. When all else fails, they take you to war. Go back to the dot-com bust. Again, in our Trends Journal magazine, October 1999, the headline, dot-com bust. Busted in March of 2000. Oh, you mean the day before 9/11, the NASDAQ was only down 66%? 9/11 happens, all forgotten. We'll create a new fake thing. We'll have a fake real estate market, a derivatives thing. We'll make up anything we can. So that's what we're saying. The United States isn't about the bottom line. The United States way out is with war. I mean, look, you can't make this stuff up. Look at the guy that's plays the United States Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. What was he? Oh, he was a general. No, after he became a general, you mean he sat on the board as directors of Raytheon, the second largest defense contractor in the United States? Oh, by the way, look at their stocks since this has gone up. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all the defense contractors. Boom, boom, boom. So that's where the United States is going. China and the BRICS are going in another direction. And then going back to gold. Look at all the gold that was bought up by the central banks in 2022.
Well, yeah, and I want to bring that up. I want to talk gold in a second, but want to stick to the Fed for a second because you brought up the Fed. I want to know where you think they're headed. You mentioned we might see another rate hike. We all know they want to slow down because inflation is cooling. Where do they go from here? What trend do you see with the Fed?
Again, it's a guessing game because let's go back. We had forecast in the Trends Journal, by the way, that if there was not a Santa Claus rally in 2022, which just passed, it's going to go down deep in the first 3 months of 2023. However, you cannot forecast what they're going to do. It's a guessing game regarding the Feds because let's go back to December 2018. Woo! The markets are going down really sharp. Donald Trump put extreme pressure on Jerome Powell to lower interest rates. Just before that, going back into November, Powell said they weren't going to raise interest rates. They did He said Powell came back in early January giving the message that they were going to lower interest rates. So the power of the president is very strong. And again, the financial business, they're the ones that run the show, the BlackRocks and the Blackstones and all the private equity groups that are in charge. If they put pressure on the Fed to lower interest rates, they're going to do it. It's not about we the people. It's about the ones running the show.
What are the chances of QE creeping back in 2023?
Very good question. I called it wrong in 2012. I thought the economy was going to crash in 2012. They invented a thing called quantitative easing. They didn't teach us that in Economics 101 at graduate school, nor did they teach us about zero and negative interest rate policy. They could come up with anything. Again, we were talking about the epiphany, right? What happened when, Trends Journal magazine from back in 2011. Does that look familiar? What happened when the Prince of Peace drove the money changers out of the temple? Woof! 3 days later, the cat's hanging on the cross. So they're going to make up anything they want. They're the money people are in charge. Anybody that thinks they have a government of we the people, they're still being taught in kindergarten to K-12 and graduate school. That's who's in control of the government.
You made headlines with this statement. The Fed will seize all your money. How?
Again, they're going to do anything they can to control our lives. Look what's going on with the interest rates, right? What's the inflation rate? Oh, it hit 10.7%. You're still deep in negative territory. So in the United States, what do you have? You have inflation rate at 7.1, and you have a 4.5, 5. You're still in negative territory. So here's what they're going to do. This is going to be the year we believe that we're going to start seeing going from dirty cash to digital trash. They're going to make up something new. And that's the way they're going to get out of this thing. Look at the United States. Just passed a $1.7 trillion budget when you have a $30.1 trillion deficit? They're going to make something up. Here, the Russians just hacked our banking system. You can't get your money out. But don't worry about it. We're coming up with a new currency. They'll make up anything. Oh, going back to, I said, when all else fails, they take you to war. The guy that was the president, FDR. Oh, that's the guy. You don't own gold anymore. Bring your gold into us, or else you go to jail. They'll make up anything. And I believe this is going to be the year where there's going to be a big push toward a digital currency, so and that's the way the Fed's going to get us.
This is the year that the road begins towards a central bank digital currency.
Yep.
In the U.S.
Matter of fact, that's the way we see it happening, and it's going to go like that, like that, like that. And we're doing this to protect you, so we can know every penny that you spent, where you spent it, what you spent it on, so we can get the tax money, because we're politicians and we don't work a day in our lives, and we need your money and all the little clowns that we call public servants that work for us, that do what we tell them to do, so we can keep them paid, so we get all your money. That's where this thing is going. And I say to people, if you're keeping money in the bank, why are you keeping it there?
On that note, let's talk gold. Because you said its central banks bought records amount of gold in the third quarter of 2022, numbers we haven't seen in decades. We still don't know what China's buying, but they revealed that they're buying some. No one really believes the numbers. that's a different story. What do central banks know that we don't know?
What they know is how they're going to rig it, and we don't know when they're going to do it and how they're going to do it. But again, as I was saying, why would you keep your money in a bank when they're not paying you anything and they're making money on your money? So going back to gold, and again, as you well know, everybody knows, we have no advertisers in the Trends Journal magazine. So we're not pumping anybody. To us, gold is the number one safe haven asset. When gold went down into the 1600s a few months ago, we said this is the bottom. It's going up from now. And now it's been hitting, several month highs. Again, when they go digital, gold is going to go through the roof, because that's going to be the only real currency that's going to be accepted to pay, to transfer, because they're going to do away with all the paper money. Again, the whole world has gone AI. It's a whole different world. It's a whole different world. And you know what the biggest news now that's being watched is TikTok. That's not news. That's like beep, beep, bop, bop, bop. That's where it's all going. And so what we're saying is to protect yourself.
It's crazy, right? I had my nieces and nephews over, telling me, they're telling me, they call me Dadina. They're like, Zia, Dadina, you got to get on TikTok. You got to get with it. I'm like, TikTok? What do you mean? You consuming your news on TikTok? And they're like, yeah, this is where they're getting everything. So it's interesting.
You're getting nothing. Yeah. You're getting nothing. You're getting nothing. By the way, what you hear in 25 minutes, words that you would hear in 25 minutes account to if 1/4 of a page of a newspaper. That's all you're getting. When you're reading, you're getting a lot more. And by the way, they call you Zia, right? And in my book, what Zitzi gave Honey Boy. and Zitzi is the Neapolitan dialect for auntie.
Yes.
So Zia, that was my auntie. We had one Zitzi out of all the aunts that you called auntie. But yeah, the kids, it's a whole different world. Yeah. It's an AI world. Look, one of my writers, the artist that does our work, Anthony Frieda, genius, and he was saying that now you could go on to AI and you could give them what you want to write, and they'll write the whole story for you, and it comes out almost like you wanted to write it.
Who needs journalists, right?
So what I'm saying, the whole world is going AI. Yeah. The younger generations are going to accept it like that, the digital currencies. That's perfect for me. It's perfect for you. And China's going to lead the way in it. And they are leading the way.
I'm going to be a bot 10 years from now, Daniela, who? On that note, okay, I know you like gold. In the past, you also had an open heart to Bitcoin. I know you had invested in Bitcoin, but curious to know if your stance has changed at all after the crypto carnage. And I know Bitcoin's in a league of itself, but obviously SBF and all that garbage affecting the whole sector. Your thoughts on the crypto space?
Yeah, well, I was always like, because Bitcoin was the one, and again, it's that generation's currency. It's going to be tough. I think there'll be a place for Bitcoin, and very interesting with Bitcoin, even though it's way down from when it was 60,000, it's still at 16,000. And when you go back, 11 years ago, it started at 0. And it's been in the $16,000 range now for months. It hasn't gone down from there. The only thing that I think it's going to stop it is when they come out with digital. And this is what we said going back to 2020 when our magazine cover was From Dirty Cash to Digital Trash. When the governments when they go fully digital, they're not going to want any competition. And they're going to make it very hard for it. That's the only way we see it going down. But we still see Bitcoin, as all the cryptocurrencies, as the one that's going to stabilize until they do that and it becomes the real deal. And it's going to take a few years for that to happen. It's going to start gradually, and then all of a sudden it'll end and we'll all be digital.
I want to get your thoughts on the political landscape, but just quick thoughts on the U.S. dollar. How important is it to the Fed, to the government, to keep the dollar propped up here? Will they do it?
They have to. Yeah, they have to. But where's the competition to the dollar? That's the whole issue. And when you look at the yuan, what does it account for? Like 3 or 4% of the whole situation in trading, and the euro.
Right.
Where's the euro going
Well,
to
let
go
me
when
ask
you're
you this.
negative?
We don't know how much gold China's buying. I mean, there are theories that they may, release some sort of uh, gold-backed currency that would be a competitor to the U.S. dollar. What do you make of that theory?
That could be a reality if something like that happens. But the way it stands is now, no. There's no competition for the dollar, even though the dollar should be in the toilet. Again, you're $31 trillion in debt. You just put another fake 1.7 trillion in there. This thing should be going way down. But again, where's the competition? So, but as you said, if they start coming out and saying, no, our currency is backed by gold, the United States is backed by nothing. I want to tell you a quick story. I have a photo here of me and John Connolly in front of the book depository. That's where Kennedy got shot and Connolly took the bullet in the back. He wanted to meet me, 1992. As we're going back into the Anatole Hotel, he said to me, I read your book, Trend Tracking. I wrote that book in the late 80s. And he said, it was far better than Megatrends Time magazine. He said, it's a fine piece of work. He said, but you don't have a clue what's going on. He said, I know your heart's in the right place, but you don't have a clue what's going on. This is John Connolly, the guy the governor of Texas that took the bullet in the back.
Yeah.
He said, but you don't have a clue what's going on, and neither do the American people. This is also the John Connolly that became, under Republican Richard Nixon, that was the Treasury Secretary that took the United States off the gold standard. You got it? You don't have a clue what's going on. And neither do the American people. Because if they knew what was going on, there'd be a revolution in this country. 1992. This is a man, again, we stayed in contact, by the way, until he died in April, from October to February, and he died in April. And so what I'm saying is the whole game is rigged. A thing just came out.
Did you ever tell him, why the heck did you get off the gold standard?
I was very respectful to him. I knew he was going to die because his hands had all these blotches on it. He was on heavy doses of prednisone. And my father, may he rest in peace, died of the same thing because he worked in a shipyard during the war and died of asbestos poisoning. So I knew Connolly was on the way out. And that's why he was talking to me the way he did. And I wanted to be very respectful to him.
I was wondering if I should bring this up, but I do, and I want to because, I mentioned SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried. We learned that he was a huge donor, second largest donor to the Democrats during the midterms. Now, I see this headline today. Billionaire George Soros quietly donated $140 billion to political causes in 2021. These donations are on top of the more than $170 million Soros personally contributed during the 2022 midterm election cycle to help Democratic campaigns. My question is, not specifically about Soros, but should there not be a limit as to what can be donated to political campaigns? What's your take on this?
Absolutely. You call this a democracy? What am I, 6 years old? We're bringing freedom and democracy around the world. And if you don't have a lot of money, you can't run for crap anywhere in this country?
Yeah.
No, it's the Supreme Court ruling that made that illegal. It was back in 2010. No, the whole game is rigged, like I said. Look at the clowns. Look at the clown show right in front of your eyes. How that guy Beto O'Rourke down in Texas, right? Oh yeah. $100 million to run for governor. Oh, and he lost. Stacey Abrams over in Georgia, $100 million midterm elections to run for governor, and she lost. What democracy are you talking about? D-U-H, democracy. You got it? It's gone. It's gone. That this kind of thing, and people call it a government. I call it a crime syndicate. They're murderers and thieves. How many more wars do they have to start in the name of bringing freedom and democracy? And how much more of our money do they have to steal in the name of too big to fail? Look at that. Look at J.P. Morgan Chase. 5 felonies. Count them. 5 felonies. Hey, how come little Jamie Dimon isn't in jail? Oh, you mean the J.P. Morgan Chase that rigged the precious metals market and only got fined $900 million in 2019? Calm down, Celente. Swallow the crap. Be a good, stupid person and believe the garbage they're shoving down your throat.
I want to end on this note. You say the game is rigged, but you know what? I'm a competitor. What can I do to win? I want to win.
Well, again, we don't win if this country doesn't, if the world doesn't go to peace. End of story. And the way we win, for me, I want to see a new third party in 2023. And here's my vision of America. RFK Jr. for President of the United States and Judge Andrew Napolitano for Vice President, bringing in both sides. That's the way I see what has to happen. If we keep the current crime syndicate, how can anybody with a brain bigger than a pea look up to a Mitch McConnell, a Lindsey Graham, this, by the way, I just got this framed. President killed. Daily News. Here, John Connolly shot. And then this one. RFK goes home. They buried him. RFK Jr., nobody has the heart and spirit that this guy has. Could you imagine your father being assassinated and your uncle being assassinated? The President of the United States? So that would bring, and Napolitano, there's nobody in the United States that knows the Constitution and the Bill of Rights better than him. We need a new third party. As I said, how could you be so stupid to look up to a little Chucky Schumer? One little clown after another, an Adam shit, one jerk after another. These are leading us? If we don't have a new way, it's over. And that's my vision for 2023.
You just brought back this awkward image I have of this interview that Schumer and Pelosi did from a Chinese restaurant. I don't know if you caught that over the holiday, but if the folks out there know what I'm talking about. It was the most awkward interview. I'll send you a clip.
Look at these people. And that's the other thing. If you call these people out man to man, they fold like that. Again, I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate at 26 years old. I got a picture of me when I picked up Ronald Reagan at the Chicago Hilton. I was 30 years old, 1976, and bringing him to the McCormick Place. We were putting on a show, and I put on a brunch with 16 of our board of directors. I've been with presidents, prime ministers, and princes.
You have.
The people that are
in power. You're very modest. You don't even talk. You're very humble about it. And you've been on Oprah, and you never even talk about that.
I was on Oprah a number of times. Yeah, here, this is the photo of me and Ronald Reagan. Yeah. I had a beard back then. What I'm saying, you know who these people are? These are the people I hated in high school and college that wanted to be class president and head of the student council. They haven't changed. Nobody could believe that I quit when I quit the Senate. It wasn't my kind of, I'm a Napolitano, born in the Bronx, born to be free. My blood's Italian, my heart's American. You have a clown opening the door. Senator Frank Jones, Senator Tom Allen. Hey, what's the matter? I said, a cat can't open the door by himself. My buddies used to go over and pull the chair out to help the senator sit down. I said, what's the matter, man? Cat can't sit down by himself. He needs some help. I said, Gerald, you have that attitude. You're not going to make it here. I said, man, this ain't my trip. My buddy, Brian Donahue, his wife became the lieutenant governor under Pataki. I was at the top. I quit. I saw what it was. And I'm saying, if you call these people out and the people unite for freedom, peace, justice, life, and liberty, we have it.
All right, Gerald. I'm going to pack up. head back to New York City. The epiphany is over for me. Back to reality. I want you to bring it home for the folks. Just final thoughts.
Yeah, for the final, this is my recommendation for everybody.
Yeah.
Get in the best shape that you can, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, every way you can. And do something positive every day to help somebody every day in any way that you can. You got to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. The stronger you get, the better you feel, the more you do, the higher we all are going to rise. So it's up to everybody individually. Look, we've all had our ups and downs, and when you go down, you got to double it up to get back up. And so that's my recommendation to everybody, because the higher everybody gets in the spirit, the better everybody feels. That's what's going to change our lives. On
that note, Gerald Celente, thank you so much. If you want to come over, I have some chestnuts roasting, some panettone. We can play a game of tombola. What do you say?
Okay. Mwah.
All right. Thank you, Gerald. Happy New Year, everyone. We'll have more great content coming your way. So be sure to stay tuned to the Daniela Camboni Show and sign up at danielacamboni.com to stay on top of it all. That's it for me. See you next week.
Opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the contributor and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Stansberry Research, its parent company, or affiliates.